Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's DAF. Maseches Bava Metzia, DAF Gimel. We are holding 8 lines off the top of the Amid on Gimel and Aleph. Now in the Mishnah we learned where two people are clutching a piece of material, a garment, each one claiming it as his. I found it, it's mine. What do? We split it evenly, right? Yachloiku. But first they make a shvuah, right? Each one has to swear to back up his claim of ownership. Says the Mishnah, Leima Masnisin, you know what? It appears like our Mishnah does not follow Rabbi Yossi's shita, the like Rabbi Yossi. We'll see in a minute. The Rabbi Yossi, because according to him, Ha'amar, doesn't he tell us that you're only meant to apply a solution which will compel the dishonest party amongst these two to admit to his falsehood. Imkain, because otherwise, ma'hifsid haramai. In which way did you inflict damage? Did you make the ramai, the dishonest fellow, the cheat? How did he lose anything? Now, what's basically going on? So Rashi brings the whole story, which we discussed later on in Perek HaMafkid and the Lamed Zayin. What happened was like this: two people, Reuben and Shimon, deposited money with Levi. One fellow deposited 100, the other one 200. A month later, they both come back. Reuven says, "Well, give me back my 200." Shimon says, "Well, the 200 was mine." Back and forth, and we don't remember who's who. So the Tanakama, the Chachamim say, "You know what? We have a total of 300 here. Now, we know for sure that each one of them, Reuben and Shimon, owns 100. So that's what we do: 100 to you, 100 to you. The other 100 we leave until Eliyahu Navi comes and tells us who it belongs to." Rabbi Yossi says, "Hold it. If you're going to follow that type of system, you haven't inflicted any loss, any damage on the Rami, on the cheat. He hasn't lost anything. You know who lost? He got back his 100, which was really his. But you know who lost out by holding on to the other 100 until the Navi comes? The real owner loses it. Rather, says Rabbi Yossi, you know what you do? In order to compel the fellow to come around and do teshuvah and admit to his falsehood, you make him hurt. You take the entire sum and put it away. Put it in trust. And that hopefully will compel the cheat, the liar, to come back and say, well, you know what, actually, come to think of it, the 200 belongs to the other fellow. Give me back at least my 100. Okay, now in our Mishnah, we don't inflict any loss, any damage on the dishonest fellow amongst these two who are claiming ownership to this talus. Because after all, each one's walking away with 50%. You haven't really set in motion a system that hopefully will achieve, a true resolution, a turnaround of this case, and the Ramai coming in. You haven't really arranged for that, because you gave him what he wanted. You gave everybody 50. You gave each fellow 50%. So the Rami walks away with something that doesn't really belong to him. Alright, so again, let's see the Gemara. Leima Masnisin. So perhaps this Yachleiku system of our Mishnah did like Rabbi Yossi. He's not going like Rabbi Yossi. Take Rabbi Yossi. Ha'amar, he tells us, you can't set up a system which does not inflict hefsed on the Ramai. Rather, everything goes in trust. It's put away until Yonavi comes. Says the Gemara, okay, suppose you're right. Elamai Rabbanon. So who's speaking in our Mishnah? It's not Rabbi Yossi. It's the other Shita, the Rabbanon, who in that story with the 100 and 200 say that each one gets 100, and the third 100, which is in question, is put away. Hold it. Our Mishnah does not really follow that route either. How? Since the Rabbanon say, the amount that's in question is put in trust, well, guess what? This entire talus, the entire thing, from beginning to end, is in a state of limbo. It's like that third $100 over there, which sticks around till Yom Navi comes. Same here. Why are we giving it out? Why are we distributing it? We should leave it on the side until Yom Navi comes. Right? Hanami kishar dami, this fakey. Our entire talus is like the extra there, because it's a suffix. So basically, who's speaking? Who's the opinion being reflected in our Mishnah? It's not Rabbi Yossi or the Rabbanon. Hi, Mai, 1 second. Why are you saying that? If it works like the Rabbanon, if our Mishnah is the Rabbanon speaking, you could explain that, in fact, this resolution is consistent with their Shita. Awesome. The Vadai, Haimanach Dechad Minayahu. You see over there, you know with certainty that 100 belongs to Reuben and 100 belongs to Shimon. Right? And the third 100 belongs to either Reuben or Shimon. There's no real justification or basis for splitting it. It's either his or his. So therefore, since that third 100 certainly belongs to one and not the other, therefore Amir Rabban say, look, the best solution is put it aside. As opposed to our story, where it's possible that they both own it, they both picked it up at the same time. Here, there is a remote possibility that they both found this lost item at the same moment, and therefore Amr Rabbanan Palki B'Shvuah. Makes sense. The Chum say, look, let them make a Shvuah and keep half. So according to Rabbanan, we can very well explain why we do that. Eli Amr Rabbi Yossi, but according to Rabbi Yossi, it's not going to work at all. Why? Hashta. Look now, Uma awesome, because since over there, even in that case with the 100 and 200, the Bevada Ikaman Lamar. If Ikaman Lamar, you know with certainty, there's no question that 100 belongs to Reuben, 100 to Shimon. Still, Rabbi Yossi says we deprive everybody of their money. We don't return anything, not a penny. Everything is put in trust. Amr Rabbi Yossi Yemunach. Sheval Yo Hacha. Certainly in our case, where there is a chance the Chad Menayehu, that in fact it belongs to only one of these two parties. Localfile, of course. Doesn't it lend to reason that you would just put it on the side? Don't risk depriving the rightful owner of his item by splitting it amongst the two. No, put it aside. So according to Rabbi Yossi, there's all the more reason in our case not to tamper with it, not to distribute it, just rather to put it aside. Who else says the Gemara? You know what? I feel the time Rabbi Yossi. Our Mishnah perhaps can follow Rabbi Yossi, because there is a difference between two stories. Hasam Vada Ikarami. In the case of the Pikadin, one of them is certainly lying. So to address that, we put everything aside. In our case, with the Metzia, who says there is a Ramai? We can speculate. Tarvaya, both individuals, they lifted at the same moment and they were zeicha together. Inami, another distinction. Hasam Kansta Rabbi Yossi l'Ramai. In the story with the Pikadim, we understand why Rabbi Yossi applies a penalty to get the Ramai going and admitting. Right? So that he admits. But Hacha, in our story, look, Reuben claims to have picked up this item off the street. It's mine. Shimon likewise claims that he picked it up first. Whoever amongst these two who's misrepresenting the truth is not really going to lose anything by having the item set aside. It was never his to begin with. Might say the Isla, the lady, why would he admit? There's no harm or damage befalling him by us putting it aside. It's not his anyways. So there's no point, no purpose in doing so. Well, Tenech Matzia, that's certainly true by a Metzia which he didn't spend money on. But in the other case of the Mishnah, where they were both vying to purchase an item, they spent money on it, and the vendor took the money from both of them. So there he spent money on it. So putting it aside without giving anybody any portion inflicts a great loss on the real, even on the Ramai, right? Because he spent money on it. So why isn't that done? It's a good way to motivate him to admit. El Machvarta says the Gemara, you're right. The clear and the proper approach is Kedushan Mikar, like we explained before, that our Mishnah is following the Rabbanon. Now, Bein Rabbanon, Bein Rabbi Yosef. Let's move on. According to both opinions, we have another question. Hasam Gabi Chan ben Avokas. So we discussed this briefly yesterday. It's a Mishnah in Shavuos. Chanvani Avokas is the grocer who was instructed by the let's say the homeowner who had hired some laborers to work for him. He instructed the Chanvani, the grocer, the caterer, please provide some lunch for my workers, right? And I'll pay you back. The Chanvani claims to have provided the lunch. The worker says, we never got anything. So what's the halacha? The Mishnah says there's a double shvua. So the grocer makes a shvua to the Baal Bayis. Look, I spent money. I gave him lunch. He makes a shvua and he gets paid for it. And likewise, the workers will approach the Baal Bayis and ask for what they deserve with a shvua. Okay, that's the halacha. Here comes a question. Why do we approach things that way? What about the following solution? Why don't we say like this? Instead of the Balabais paying twice, let him pay out once. All right, and take that amount and put it aside, put it in trust. You know why? Certainly if somebody's lying, either he gave him lunch or he didn't. It's impossible that both accounts are true and accurate. Okay, so according to everybody, this money should be put aside. Why don't we do that? Amri, the answer is like this. That's a unique situation. It's a unique case. Incomparable to the cases we have here. They both have a right. The Chanvani and the Payalim have full right to demand full payment from the Baal Bayis, even though he's going to pay twice. You know why? Time. Over there, the following reason applies. The Amalei Chanvani, the Baal Bayis. Firstly, the Chanvani turns to the Baal Bayis. Look, I don't know, what happened. All I know is Anosh lichusa didach kavdina. I did my job. You asked me to do something, I did it. Case closed. My isli gabi sachar. I have nothing to do with the laborer. He's not my litigant. He's not my manda amar. You asked me, you instructed me, I followed instructions. Pay me. So, even if he'll make a shvua to me that he got paid, I don't believe him. I never trusted him, right? He's not my man. You trusted him. Honestly, you never told me b'sahadi havlei that give him the lunch in front of Adam. Basically, you trusted him. And you asked me to do something. I followed it, pay me. And likewise, this Sachar, the worker, can claim the same. He turns to the Baal Bayis. I did my work by you. I laid your bricks. I was supposed to get my lunch as payment. I have nothing to do with the Chanvani. He's not my man. Even if he'll get up and swear with a Sefer Torah, I don't believe him. I say he's a Rasha, right? So, and Rashi points out something very interesting. He can say, look, I didn't trust him. I didn't trust him. The only time we expect a person to abide by a shvur that's presented to him is when he submits himself. He submitted himself to this person. I gave you a pikadon. That basically is sort of putting me in a position where I will have to accept your shvuah. Right? But here, I have no association with the chanvani. Even if they'll swear to me, I don't believe it. Hilkach, that explains the halacha. Why tarvai, both of them, the grocer and the worker, mishtabi, vishakli, balabayis, they rest their case against the balabayis by making a shvuah and getting paid. Here comes an interesting halacha. We all know that a moida b'miktzas must make a shvuah. It's pasuk in the Torah. Ki hu zeh, look, it's not 100 that I owe, it's 50. Moida b'miktzas, he concedes halfway. The halacha is you make a shvuah to back up your claim that you're pater. What about if the fellow never conceded? He was never moida, but Adam testified against him regarding part of that money. Question: does that trigger a shvuah or not? Tanu Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda presented a price. Reuben approaches Shimon. Look, where's my $100 that you owe me? Shimon responds, nothing doing. I have no idea. You never gave me anything. I paid you back, whatever. And we have Adam right here, 2 witnesses testifying against Shimon. You owe him $50. So what happens? We treat it like a moida b'miktzas. Shimon pays up the 50, and he makes a shvuah on the rest. That he doesn't owe it to him. Why do we say this? Who says we treat this type of situation like a person who is moida, who admits on his own? Who says? Because one's verbal concession cannot be greater and stronger and trigger more liability miadas Adam when a situation is being driven by Adam. It's based on localfile, which we'll see soon. The Tana, and as it was presented Tuna by our Tana in the Mishnah, so we have Reuven and Shimon both holding an item, claiming it as theirs. Now, what does that have to do with our story? Look, interesting parallel. Take a close look at our case. The Kivin to Tafsi, since they're both holding it. Anan Sadi, we're like witnesses. It's like we see that each person owns half. The Maida Tav is Haid Dehu, whatever you're holding is yours, meaning half. Umaida Tav is Haid Dehu, whatever you're holding is yours. That's how it looks, that's how it appears to us. So if you want to break it down into minute, it comes out like this: that Reuben is demanding the entire thing. It's all mine. Shimon, total denial, totally mine, he says. But we have a clear indication that in fact half belongs to Reuben, in which case it's sort of it's like a challenge on Shimon's denial. He's totally denying everything, but really we see half as belonging to Reuben. What's in his hands is presumed to be his. So it's like we have Edus that half his denial is incorrect. And likewise, Shimon's claim on Reuben with the same story back and forth. So it's basically like our case. Where's my 100? Nothing. Adam say 50 yes. And what does the Mishnah say? You have to make a shvuah. So it's based on this halacha, that a moida b'miktzas applies even in this type of case. Now, we have to sort of establish this and prove it. Why? Because in the Torah, we only have this halacha by hadas piv, a personal admission. But through kal v'chomer, we substantiated this point as well. That what? That Adam could also trigger this. Now, why do we need this kal v'chomer? To establish that personal admission isn't greater than the process triggered by Adam. Meaning, why would I think that hadas piv is better? Because one shouldn't think that only by hadas piv the Torah imposes a shvuah for good reason, like Rabbi explains. Why, in fact, is it so? Amr Torah says, when a person admits to part of that claim, he has to swear. You know why? You see, in a way, Rashi says, he shouldn't be making a shvuah, because if anything, he's doing you the biggest favor. You could just walk away, you could just deny the whole thing and walk away. It's like a Mesha Avet, like he's returning a lost item. He's admitting to part. He's a nice fellow. Be gracious and take what's being offered to you. Why do we go ahead and give him a hard time? Make him swear? Here comes the answer. Very interesting rationale. Because really, chazaka, it's an assumption. It's human nature. Ein adam meis panav. A person doesn't have the guts, the brazenness, b'fnei ba'al chayv, to deny his ba'al chayv, the entire claim. Look, he lent him money. How could he just turn around and deny it? It's against human nature. So in reality, he would have wanted to deny the entire loan. The reason why he didn't do so, because he can't bring himself to do it. Right? So bottom line is, he didn't really have the option of denying the entire thing, so it's not to his credit. Don't give him any credit for admitting. There goes that argument. On the other hand, Rashi explains, this generates a new problem, because he's chashad, he's now suspected of denying money which he rightfully owes, right? He's denying a claim. So, in as much as we suspect that he's lying, how could we go ahead and trust him with a shvuah? It's called migud chashad amamoina chashad shvuah, says Rashi on the top line. If you don't believe him for money, don't believe him on the shvuah. Don't make him a shvuah that he's going to lie. So in reality, so this is going to answer that part. Here comes another point. Really, he wants to admit the entire thing. He can't bring himself to deny, really. He wants to admit to it. He wants to pay back. Why didn't he do so? He's just trying to wiggle away, delay. It's a delay tactic. He doesn't have money. Sabar, he's figuring, apparently, once as soon as I get hold of money, I pay it back. He's not really trying to lie and steal. So that explains why V'amar Achmana Torah says, get the shvuah going. So that will force him to admit the entire claim. So he's not ready really to steal, nor is he ready to make a shvuah sheker. So of course a shvuah can verify things. This is all good and well when the claimant himself came forth and admitted. So you see, there's something fishy. He's really trying to, he's just delaying things. Clarify it with a shvuah. So it makes sense that a shvuah is imposed in this type of case. Aval adas Edom. But when Shimon denied entirely, but Edom came and triggered a partial liability, here you don't have this whole rationale. The lekal mahachi, you can't apply this at all, because you see he's in total denial. So maybe he'll totally deny the shvuahs, he'll lie by the shvuah as well. So how could you impose a shvuah on him? That's what I would think. Mashwan comes the chiddush and says no. Even by the Edom, we impose a shvuah. Why? Kal v'chaymer. Umay kal v'chaymer. What's the kal v'chaymer? Umapiv she'ein mechayv v'mamim, mechayv v'shvuah. If one's own personal, verbal expressions cannot trigger any financial liabilities, but it still can trigger a shvuah, as we explained. Edom which can impose monetary liability on a person. Doesn't lend to reason they can do the same with shvuah? Hold it, 1 second. What do you mean a person cannot incriminate himself financially? Of course he could. We know. It's a tesefta, Bava Metzia, right over here in the first parak. The admission of a litigant is like 100 Edom, full trustworthiness. Of course he can trigger personal liabilities with, dibur. My mammon, when we say a person can't trigger mammon, it means knas. A person cannot penalize himself. Straight out liability, yeah, but not, he can't impose a fine on himself. But Edom could do that. And the Kavachayim is, Uma piv she'ein mechayva is knas. One's own piv cannot trigger himself a knas. Mechayva shvuah can trigger a shvuah. Edom shemachayvin is a knas in addition shemachayvin shvua. Edom that can bring a knas on a person certainly is shvua. Well, malapiv, perhaps a person's piv has an element which is greater than the Edom. Sheken mechayve carbon. A person can initiate a carbon. Rashi brings the pasuk v'svada shorchata v'hevi. He admits he goes to shuva. He brings a carbon. Tamer b'Edom as opposed to Edom who don't have that power. She'en mechayve is a carbon. So if anything, piv is stronger than Edom. Halei kasha. That's not a kasha because Rabbi Yehuda, who presents this kal v'chomer, Karameir severely. He holds like Karameir. The Amar Edom Mechayv Nesi Carbon Mikal V'Chaymer. There's another Kal V'Chaymer, which teaches us that Edom can impose carbon on a person. This nan, as we have a Mishnah in Meseches Yivamis, Meseches Krisis. Amar Leishnai Machal Techelev. Two Edom approach a person. You ate forbidden fats. Bring a carbon. Whoever Leichalti denies it. Rameir Mechayv. You have to bring a carbon. Come to Rameir. Chacham say no. You pot. Amar Rameir. Argue to the Chachamim. What do you mean? Im Haviyu Shnayim. Two Edom have the ability to impose death penalty on a person in the Bezdin. Shouldn't they have the power to impose a carbon which is lighter than Misa? Amrullah, the Rabbanan responded, you're right, in theory, but in practice, he always has the option to say that I did it purposely. A carbon is only when it was done inadvertently. So the Edom don't know what's going on in a person's heart. Maybe he did it b'mezid. And he could claim, yeah, sure, I know I ate the fat, but it was b'mezid. There you go, no carbon. So he has that ability to exempt himself. And therefore we believe him when he says that he didn't really eat it. So the kasha was, Edom cannot bring a carbon. And the answer is, according to Rameir, they can bring a person to a chiyav carbon. Ella rather, says the Gemara, another kasha. You're assuming Edom stand higher than a person's personal expression. Who says? When it comes to an asham, only a person can trigger his own asham, and Edom can't. Well, asham I know carbon. What do you mean? Asham is the same as carbon. Edom can do that. Ella rather the added fifth. If a person denies a monetary claim and comes back and admits he has to pay the kera and the chaymesh, the asham, Edom can't do that. Holy kasha. Well, the answer is like this. Rav, the author of this price of Rameir, really, again, he holds like Rameir, and according to Rameir, there's no difference. Just like we prove from the Kal V'Chomer that Edom, if they can bring about Misa, they can bring about carbon, certainly they can also do Chaymesh as well, based on the same Kal V'Chomer. So that's not a kash. The idea of Edom Zayumin, or being contradicted by others, that doesn't apply to a person's own personal admission. So let's say Edom come and say, no, what are you talking about? You don't owe the money. You said you do? No, you don't. Or, what do you mean? How could you claim to have bar at this and this location, at this and this time? You were with us, at a different place, at that. So the ideas of Hakash and Azama only apply to a case where witnesses were proven to be false, but not when a person's own Haidah is at stake. So he has that sort of one up over the Edom because he's immune from Hakash and Azama. Turn Edom as opposed to witnesses who are very exposed, very susceptible to this system of Hakash and Azama. Sheyashna b'Hakash v'Azama, they're affected if they're contradicted or they become Edom Zaymin. So perhaps the fact that Piv is stronger in this extent, in this realm, that will explain why Piv can trigger the Bava Metzia Shvu, but Edom can't. So that's not a good Kal V'Chomer. Ella asyam eid echad. Rather, says the Gemara, we're going to prove it from an eid echad, from one eid, as follows. Ma eid echad she'ein mechayv mammon. An eid echad cannot really bring a person to chiyav mammon, right? Right? If an eid echad testifies against a person, there's no chiyav mammon, but still mechayv b'shvua, the person has to defend his claim by swearing against the testimony of the Eid Echad. So you see that even though he can't do mammon, he can do shvua. Edom, two witnesses, shemachayv and noisei mammon, who have the ability to make a person liable to payment. Certainly, they can do so by shvua. Well, says the Gemara, you can't compare mal Eid Echad sheken al mashahu meilu nishba. You see the difference between the Eid Echad and two Edom is that by the Eid Echad, what happened? Reuben claimed $100 from Shimon. Shimon totally denied it. Reuben brought an aid. How can you deny it? You owe it to him. Shimon has to go ahead and contradict, has to pose the aid with a shvur. Al Mashu Meiru Nishpat, the Shvua addresses the testimony of the Eid Echad. As opposed to the Shvua that you're proposing by the two Eidim. Totally different type of Shvua. Reuben claimed 100 against Shimon. Shimon denied, totally. The Eidim came, no, Shimon, you own 50. Now, that 50 is paying regardless. The Shvu would not pertain to those 50. It would pertain to Shimon defending his argument, backing up his claim regarding the other 50 that he's not paying. The Shvu here is not directly relating to what the Eidim are saying. The 50 that they're speaking about, he's paying. So he says that the Eidim have the ability to trigger this type of shvuah, which doesn't really relate directly to what they're saying. So bottom line, how do we know that two Eidim can trigger the shvuah of Bava Metzia? And Be'ez Hashem, the Gemara will continue tomorrow. We'll see it till the end. Okay, so in summary, the mission spoke about Shnai and Matalas. We say Achloiku. We try to work it through with the Shittas of Rabbi Yossi, of the Rabbanan, and the other cases, and we try to draw parallels and distinctions and figure things out in a way that substantiates the halacha in our Mishnah. We have the Chiddush of Rabbi Chia, just like by a Bava Metzia, on account of a person's own admission. There's a shvuah likewise by Eidim, and theoretically we would not do so because of Rabba's way of explaining the Bava Metzia, which doesn't apply to the Eidim. Rather, we need a Kal V'chomer, which proves the point. Which Kal V'chomer? We're still working at it, and Be'ez Hashem to be continued tomorrow. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha Rabbah.